The Elven Star Mystery number 7. We've come through quite a journey to arrive at this point, and we've established boundaries, a sense of self, we've expanded our reach, we've learned to deepen the heart, be decisive about what we choose as the interpretation of what's going on in our lives, found a way to collaborate with other people to realize our vision, and come to understand how underneath all of the complex and often confusing events and people and feelings in our life, there are strands, and they make themselves known really only over time. So having looked back and been careful to interpret properly what has happened in our lives, we come to a sense of self which is deeper than we have known before, and we are much more in tune with the highest sense of self, the soul, consciousness. And in this last mystery we're discussing really what to do with that. What do we do next? And this ties up with the word in the 7-word system, yes, whose primary function is to teach us how to surrender, how to allow the flow of life just to carry us along, and how to trust that that's the best strategy for us. It's counterintuitive to some significant extent to trust in a life that's clearly punctuated by strife and enemy attack and things that we really have to guard against. And yet, having reached a certain state of being, there is in place around us, invisible, felt as an atmosphere, which is a protective barrier. It's mysterious, it can't be demonstrated, you can only trust in it, feel it, have faith in it. Yet it is there. And because it's there, we have no need to be prickly with the world. And we have no appetite to expand our sense of self because we've reached a place of satisfaction. Hence we can say yes to things. What comes along, we can respond to it cheerfully, joyfully, partly because this protective layer of atmosphere is consistent with the magnetism which is now radiating from our being, having gone through this purification process. And this magnetism is powerful and it has quality. It draws to us what we are, because that's what magnetism does. It finds a like source of electrical energy and forms relationship with it. And so we are that. We're drawing to us that which is consistent within our own now purified being. So we just don't get attacked anymore. We just don't get people coming into our lives who are not resonant with us. No need to guard then. No need to claim and grasp. The facility of surrender is available to us. And it's a great joy to do that when we just allow things to unfold in front of us, if we notice them. So being aware of the subtle clues in any situation is something to develop. Reading situations differently now. Knowing that we're attracting to us that which we want, that which we need, that which we desire. It is coming to us by force of magnetism. Then we have to notice when it's come. and it doesn't ring the doorbell. It presents itself in strange ways. You may notice that since you've developed a greater sense of self and commitment to a meditative path, that there are greater numbers of synchronicities that arise, that peculiar coincidences occur ever so often, or every so often at least. These are clues. These are subtle clues. When something happens and you notice, like, oh, that's unusual, that's a subtle clue. And correspondences, if you see certain things happening, forming a pattern, that's another clue. And there'll be symbolism. Your own Sabian symbols might come to life in physical form, in a way that you just didn't imagine before. You have to notice these things. Not only are we saying yes to life in the physical realm, we're saying yes to life which is bestowed upon us from above. Shall we say the soul's blessing, or at least channeled through the soul. And the process by which we do that is known as affirmation. When you're in a certain state of consciousness, and to be honest, not unless, then you can speak a phrase or a sentence beginning with the words, I am, and affirm what you would like to be, even though you know currently in your normal life situation you are not yet there. It requires us to be in this special state, because when we get into that zone, then the affirmation is true. So there is a place of our being which we can imagine where any affirmation is the case, even though on this physical plane it is not the case, and therefore untrue. People might say, I am abundant, I am wealthy, when they're not. They don't feel that. They don't see that in their physical lives. Well, if they're not in the right state when they say that, it's not an affirmation, it's a lie. It's false. If you're in that higher state of being and you say an affirmation, then on that level it is true. And by saying it out loud with your voice, you invite that truth to move towards the physical realm. That's the magical spell which an affirmation is. And the zone, the state of being that we need to be in for the affirmation to work, is exactly that state where yes, in the 7-word system, or the 7th Sabian symbol in your Elven Star, operates best. How do you want to get into that state? How do you learn how to get into that state? The answer is your 7th Elven Star, Sabian symbol. There are dangers, of course, involved in saying yes willy-nilly. If we said yes to everything that comes our way, we would be destroyed, because we live in a world where people take what is not offered. So what protection is there for us if we practice surrender to the flow of life? What protection do we have that will be okay? I mentioned that we have this atmospheric bubble of light around us necessarily if we're strong in our magnetism. And by and large, that's enough. But there are times when situations occur which are not wrong. We have attracted them, and we choose to have them in our lives, and yet they are effectively examinations, tests, if you like. So these occurrences are certain, inevitably and forever. So how do we respond to these examinations? And basically it's a choice of perception, an examination. An event occurs, and you're going to interpret that event with your own subjectivity, with your own spin. And you do this according to the expectation that you have in your mind, typically. If you expect someone to behave badly towards you, and they do something which is in fact neutral, it doesn't really take you into account at all, it's just what they're doing. If you have a negative spin, and you perceive them to be not good people, then you're going to project upon to that behavior something which was never there, and turn it into something negative. And they'll feel that, and so they'll respond appropriately, which is to be more negative. That's how behavior interacts. However, if you hold them to be a respectful person, at the very least, and perhaps even a good person, and you see their behavior, which doesn't please you, but you don't read anything into it, you just wait, observing in a neutral state of being, and giving them the benefit of the doubt, then that will soften their position, and they'll move towards a more benign attitude towards you. The best way to understand this principle of life, and this is a general principle, this is how it all works, is to look in a mirror. And you'll see somebody looking at you in the mirror, of course yourself, with a neutral expression. Just hold your glance in a neutral way for a while, a good while, which is quite a powerful exercise in itself, I'll have you know. And the time will come when you're going to move towards a more negative or a more positive facial expression. And you will see that change in the mirror, and you'll respond further, and it will get further and further in one direction or the other. And we know for sure that the mirror, the reflection, is not going to initiate this. And that's the best metaphor there is for life, that we simply have to project upon to the mirror of life a positive affirmation, a positive expectation, an attitude which is forgiving and accepting and tolerant. And this radiance of magnetism, of well-being, is radiated back to us by the mirror of life. So in any situation which appears to be going against us, we can interpret that as a warning or a clue about what we're doing with our own perception. If anything's going wrong, it's because we're thinking wrongly. We can train the mind not to do that so much. It will always do it a little bit, but we can train the mind not to do that so much, which is basically what meditation is about. Just conditioning yourself to respond gently, slowly, cautiously sometimes, but never to add fuel to the fire. This is our guarantee of safety. And it has a huge importance now in these times when we're moving into a very different future from that which we have ever known or imagined. There will be places on the planet that are just not safe to go. And there will be many of them. And there will be people who are absolutely certain that dire things will happen to them. And we have to be careful not to give them too much influence over us. Just enough to help them if we can, in our own way, just by being calm and loving and tolerant. That might be enough. We don't have to explain our philosophy to them just because we don't agree with theirs. And yet this calmness of being in the presence of a fearful person is a great gift, not only to them, but also to the world generally, but most particularly to yourself. These are examinations. When somebody enters your life with fear, with negativity, with dire emergencies on their mind all the time, it's just an examination for you. And the way to deal with it is to radiate positivity, to be optimistic, to have faith in faith. Faith is a decision, and we need to make it now. We need to decide to be optimistic, that despite all of the evidence and all of the drama of the media, nevertheless, it's going to be all right. At least it will for us. If people want to choose differently, they have that free will. But if you choose a path of light and soul consciousness and goodness and radiant love, then it'll come. But you do need to choose it. You do need to affirm it. And you do need to perceive that it has come to you. This final teaching is the teaching of assumption. Just assume everything's fine. And it is.